Anti-government protesters ramp up pressure on embattled Chilean president. The murder of a black man by Brazilian security forces sparks nationwide protests. And Pompeo's visit to illegal Jewish settlements in occupied Syrian and Palestinian territories angers locals. Hello and welcome to teleSUR. I'm Doris Polo in Quito, Ecuador, and this is from the South. Widespread protests demanding the resignation of President Sebastián Piñera continue in Chile. Protesters have mainly rallied in the center of the capital, Santiago, close to the presidential palace. Police have kept the mobilized students, representatives of social movements, and indigenous people surrounded under a dense rain of tear gas and water cannons. Chileans are calling for Piñera's resignation over the social and economic policies implemented both before and during the COVID-19 pandemic. They are also demanding the immediate release of all political prisoners. Peru's new president, Francisco Sagasti, has said the proposals for a new constitution, as demanded by some sections of society during the recent protests, is not an urgent matter. Sagasti stated that his transitional government's immediate objective is to restore peace to the country, which experienced an intense week of protests after President Martín Vizcarra's removal. Demonstrators have demanded a reform of the discredited Congress and a new constitution, but Sagasti believes constitutional reforms is a task that should be left to the next elected government. Another former FARC combatant has been murdered in Colombia. Jairo Lopez was gunned down in Putumayo in the southwest region of the country on Friday. This has pushed the cumulative number of former guerrillas killed since the signing of the 2016 peace agreements to 242. That's Jairo Lopez. Shifting gears now, Guatemala's Vice President Guillermo Castillo has urged President Alejandro Giammattei to resign over his approval of an almost $13 billion budget, the largest in the country's history, which raises the state's debt limits, inciting protests and calls to veto it. Castillo says if the president agrees, he will also step down.
Unfortunately, we had not success in today's meeting, and I would therefore like to make my approach very clear to the President. It is in the country's interest that we both tender our resignations, him as President and I as Vice President of the Republic. But let's do it together. I have made it very clear to the President that things are not right on many government issues, and the decisions that have been taken I don't agree with. I have not been consulted on them because of the lack of communication we have with the President. This is also due to a citizen demand. We have been told that things are not as people hope.
Now, the spending plan was negotiated in secret and approved by the Congress before dawn on Wednesday. It was also passed while the country was distracted by the fallout of 2 consecutive hurricanes. On Friday, the National Coordinator for Disaster Reduction reported that more than 330,000 people were affected by Hurricane IOTA's passage through the nation days ago. More than 5,000 people are reportedly being housed in official shelters, while about 15,000 are in unofficial centers. Light rainfall in the country's north has further raised concerns over the possibility of more flooding. And in northern Honduras, hundreds of people are awaiting help from rescuers as extensive flooding continues following the passage of hurricanes ETA and IOTA. Authorities noted that parts of San Pedro Sula and the capital have been the worst hit. The fire department reported that 16 people had been found dead so far, while rescue workers are still searching for missing persons. As Brazilians prepared to mark Black Awareness Day on Friday, videos circulated on social media of a black man being beaten by security guards at a supermarket in the city of Porto Alegre, sparking outrage. According to reports, emergency services attempted to resuscitate 40-year-old João Alberto Silveira Freitas at the scene, but he was already dead after being beaten by two white security guards, one of whom was an off-duty cop. A short video clip showed one guard restraining him just outside the doors of a Carrefour supermarket, while the other inflicted repeated blows to his face. Other clips showed a guard kneeling on top of Freitas' back. Dozens of protesters demonstrated in the capital Brasilia on Friday morning, chanting Black Lives Matter, as the incident bore similarities to the murder of George Floyd in the U.S. The security guards involved have been arrested on charges of aggravated homicide.
What we saw in Porto Alegre is the most despicable expression of structural racism, institutional racism, and how much Brazil still inherits from the heritage of the slave countries operating in the America.
My brother João, who died, is not just João. He is part of the black family, excluded from society for 500 years. And we still hear and see these expressions of anger, rage, racism.
And protests have broken out in the cities of Belo Horizonte and Rio de Janeiro. In Rio, demonstrators used tires stuffed with sunflowers to block the entrance of a Carrefour store. Protesters chanted and demanded justice for all those killed by police in the country.
Being black in Brazil means you have your humanity stolen. You have all your rights stolen. You don't have the opportunity to come and go in peace. You have the security system designed to have you as the accused. Even when you are the victim, you are the target of any bullet that circulates in this city. There is no bullet lost when it hits a black body.
Staying in Brazil, the Workers' Party candidate for mayor of the municipality of Curalinho, Lila Arruda, was murdered by her former partner in the city of Belém. The activist was the founder of the movement of enterprising women in the Amazon and was due to participate in the second round of the municipal elections this November. Social movements have expressed their solidarity and condolences to her friends and family while demanding justice. Shifting gears now, Haiti's national police have launched an investigation into the possible participation of their officers in the death of an opposition activist during anti-government protests in the capital, Port-au-Prince. The police force will probe complaints from social organizations and human rights defenders who have linked some police officers to the activist's death during the November 18th demonstrations. At least one person was shot dead, 3 were injured, and 5 others were arrested during the protests. We'll take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has announced the complete reactivation of the country's oil refineries and the resumption of gasoline production, which was impacted by the United States' unilateral and coercive sanctions.
They stole 3 million barrels from us just a month ago. They are calling on all the companies in the world so that no one dares to bring a drop of gasoline to Venezuela. But we also have to say that thanks to the heroic and persistent efforts of refinery workers and PDVSA, we are already producing all the gasoline that Venezuela needs. We are already producing it.
And President Maduro also proposed that those elected to the National Assembly on December 6th should initiate a public hearing against the lawmakers responsible for the theft of Venezuelan assets abroad.
You agree with the holding of a public hearing in the new National Assembly against the lawmakers who stole from our country, who betrayed the country, who stole CHILE's money, that of Manamaro. Let's see what the people have to say.
Pharmaceutical corporation Pfizer and its partner BioNTech has become the first to submit its COVID-19 vaccine candidate for approval in the United States. It will now be up to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to decide if the vaccine is safe to roll out. Late on Friday, the FDA said it will meet with Pfizer and BioNTech representatives on December 10th to discuss the development before making a recommendation. Data from an advanced trial shows that the vaccine is 94% effective at preventing COVID-19 infections. Staying in the United States, a mass shooting in Wisconsin has left 8 people injured. The incident took place at Mayfair Mall in Wauwatosa City. According to information provided by the city's mayor, Dennis McBride, the shooter is still at large while police have launched a manhunt. The Gun Violence Archive, a non-profit research group, has tallied at least 38,000 deaths caused by gun violence in the U.S. since the beginning of the year, while at least 570 mass shootings have taken place during the same period. Around 500 asylum seekers, including 85 who tested positive for COVID-19, have been transferred by bus to different centers of the Spanish Red Cross in the Canary Islands. The government will set up emergency camps for up to 7,000 people as part of a response to the high influx of arrivals on the Canary Islands. The plan also involves reinforcing Coast Guard rescue teams in the area. The emergency camps are to be set up within weeks as a temporary solution, while the government readies other facilities for processing arrivals. The plan will cost 84 million euros, which will come from the European Union funds. And Spain's Congress has approved a new education bill on Thursday, which triggered protesters, right-wing politicians. Our correspondent Adriana Cardoso brings us the details in this report.
The debate on the new Education Act has once again revealed the polarization of the Congress. The right wing shouted freedom, while the left wing celebrated the act. The Spanish right wing, after collecting signatures, denounced that the new law attacks the Spanish language by eliminating it as a vehicular language. They also criticized the restrictions on semi-private education and the lack of public funding for schools that segregate the students depending on their sex.
It limits the parents' right to choose the kind of education for their children. It attacks the freedom of education and of school choice. So give them education in their everyday language, in their mother tongue, and don't impose the Catalan, don't impose the linguistic immersion model on them.
From the left wing, they value the replacement of the Education Act made by Partido Popular, the opposition party, which they described as retrograde and elitist. Furthermore, the government denies the elimination of the Spanish language, and it points out that religion will not disappear from the classroom neither, but that it will simply not be a subject that can be evaluated and graded.
The educational authorities shall guarantee the right to the students to be educated in Spanish and in the other co-official languages in their respective territories. It is neither language nor the religion. The serious problems are inequality, school failure, lack of funding, or segregation.
Associations for the defense of education consider that the legislation restores the public value that education should have. They point out that the existence of subsidized schools only makes sense when there are not enough public schools vacancies, which this law attempts to solve, and therefore they demand that state funds finance almost exclusively public education.
What it states is that the autonomous communities have to provide sufficient public school vacancies in all institutions, in the schools, in the childhood education. That is to say, a shortage of vacancies does not have to exist.
These associations denounce that the Act fails in having a maximum number of students per teacher.
We ask the proportion to be at least 20 in secondary school, 25 in high school, and 50-20 in primary school.
The government has committed to provide funds to enforce this law in the coming years to reach 5% of the gross domestic product, though social organizations are demanding an investment of at least 7%.
We have more stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. Georgia has held runoff elections in several constituencies in a vote boycotted by the opposition. All of the country's opposition parties have staged mass protests after claiming the October 31st parliamentary elections were rigged. They want snap polls, a demand the ruling Georgian Dream Party has rejected. The government reportedly won 48% of the votes against 46% for opposition parties in a proportional ballot that decided 120 of the legislature's 150 seats. Opposition candidates have said they will renounce their mandates.
There is no place for people who do not know how to behave in a governmental post. That is why there is an election process. Awareness of the population must be increased so that people know whom to vote for. Georgia will not succeed until party hegemony is overridden.
What I see today is politicians purring their own interests about the interests of the country, and they should be stopped.
Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has denounced the existence of alleged U.S. intelligence facilities operating out of Ukraine and Poland devoted to carrying out operations against his country. According to Minsk, the foreign intelligence services of Belarus and Russia identified 2 facilities in Warsaw and Kiev. Lukashenko stressed that the U.S. and their technological equipment are highly specialized in hostile interventions. He also emphasized that Washington and its allies will not be able to achieve the objective of provoking a change of government by undemocratic means in Belarus. Freak ice storms following abnormal weather have left 150,000 people without water and electricity in the far eastern Russian city of Vladivostok. The exceptional weather brought down cables and trees, prompting the government of the Primorsky region to declare a state of emergency. Freezing rain began battering the city of some 600,000 people overnight on Thursday after a cyclone carrying hot air met an anti-cyclone carrying cold air, according to the local weather service. In some places, the resulting ice was 12 millimeters thick, something not seen in the region for 30 years. Well, Palestinian and Syrian authorities have condemned U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's unprecedented visit to the occupied Golan Heights. Pompeo became the first top U.S. diplomat to visit the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights after another unprecedented stop in an illegal Jewish settlement in the West Bank that infuriated Palestinians in what was seen as a parting gift to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from the Trump administration. Pompeo, who has made a staunchly pro-Israel stance a hallmark of his term in office, also described the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement against the Israeli regime as a cancer that Washington should designate as anti-Semitic. And Palestinian Americans expressed their anger and disappointment after Pompeo's tour of the illegal Jewish West Bank settlement of Pasagot.
I'm very angry, I'm very disappointed, and I think Mr. Pompeo is committing a crime against international law and against every value and amendments in the American Constitution. At least we know that Mr. Biden claimed that he's going to be a man and a president for all Americans, and we are looking toward fulfilling his promise to be a president of all Americans and to protect our interests as United States citizens living in this area and own some property in this area.
In other news, South Australian authorities decided to cut short the 6-day coronavirus lockdown imposed on Thursday after it was revealed that the decision was based on a lie told to contact tracers. Premier of South Australia Stephen Marshall said the lockdown will be lifted on Saturday night and not on Monday as planned after it was revealed that a pizza bar worker with COVID-19 in Adelaide had lied about their employment activities, triggering the lockdown across the entire state of South Australia. On that note, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on StarSat channel 461 in South Africa and channel 539 in Nigeria. And join us on social media for teleSUR English. I am Doris Polo. Thanks so much for watching.